How many people have a key to the place where you sleep? For a lot of adults in America, the honest answer isn't one, and it usually wasn't a choice. You want your own place. One bedroom, all yours. Your furniture, your rules, coffee in the morning with nobody else awake. You come home and the room is exactly how you left it. No roommate's dishes in the sink, no footsteps in the hallway at 2 in the morning, just a door that closes behind you. That's the picture. That's what every apartment listing in this country is built to sell you. The photos are shot wide on a bright morning. The furniture is staged. The closet looks deeper than it really is. And here is what the listing doesn't show you. The deposit that turns out to be 2 months instead of 1. The renter's insurance the lease quietly requires before anyone hands you a key. The application fee you never see again. The car you now need on your own, with nobody left to split the tank. The health plan that no employer is paying for. The internet bill, the phone bill, and $11 of groceries a day. And sitting underneath every one of those, a single number. The amount you have to earn for every hour you work just to reach the end of the month at 0. Not ahead, not saving anything. 0. By the end of this video, you are going to know that number exactly, down to the cent. You'll know how it's built, which line inside it is far bigger than almost anyone thinks, and whether you personally are standing above it or below it. Most people find they're much closer to the line than they assumed. A lot of people find they're already underneath it. So let's build it properly, one rule at a time. Here are the rules. 1 adult, 1 one-bedroom apartment, rented, not owned. An average American city, not New York, not San Francisco, not a town of 400 people where the only real employer closed in 2009. The middle, we count no savings, no retirement contributions, no holiday. No emergency fund, not $1 of debt repaid. This is pure survival, with nothing at all sitting above it. Lesson 1. Rent is the floor, not the ceiling. The median one-bedroom apartment in the United States runs about $1,540 a month. And notice carefully what that number actually is. It is not a nice apartment. It is not a renovated apartment. It is the exact middle of every one-bedroom in the country, which means half of them are worse than whatever you are picturing right now. That median also hides an enormous spread. The same apartment is $800 in parts of the Midwest and $3,200 on the California coast. When somebody tells you rent is fine where they live, they are usually telling you the truth about their city and nothing whatsoever about yours. We're using the national middle because it is the only honest place to start. 1540, line 1. There's also a cost the monthly figure ignores completely. Moving in, first month, last month, and a security deposit is standard across most of the market. That is roughly $4,600 before you have slept there a single night. Add an application fee, a credit check, and a rental truck, and the door that closes behind you costs about $5,000 just to open for the first time. Line 2. Utilities. Electricity, gas, water, and trash collection. One person, small apartment, nothing extravagant anywhere. Call it $180 a month. In a Phoenix July, when the air conditioning runs from breakfast until midnight, it is considerably higher. In a Minnesota January, when the heat never fully shuts off, it is higher again. 180 is the quiet middle between two bills that genuinely hurt. Running total, $1,720. Line 3. Food. The government actually tracks this one. The Department of Agriculture publishes what it costs a single adult to eat at 4 separate levels, from thrifty all the way up to liberal. We are taking the moderate plan. That means cooking at home, not eating out, not ordering delivery, not buying lunch at work. $340 a month. Break that down and it comes to about $11 a day. 3 meals, $11. Coffee made at home, not bought from a shop. Meat maybe 3 times a week, nothing forgotten at the back of the fridge, because at $11 a day, there is genuinely no room for anything to be wasted. If that sounds tight to you, it is tight. That is what moderate means. Running total, $2,060. Now line 4, and this is the point where almost everybody gets the arithmetic wrong. Getting to work. In most of America there is no train, there is no tram, there is a bus route that runs twice an hour and doesn't go anywhere near where the jobs actually are. So there is a car. And across the majority of this country, the car is not a lifestyle preference. It is the difference between holding a job and not holding one. Lesson 2. Nobody counts a car correctly. Ask almost anyone what their car costs them and they will tell you the payment. $400 a month perhaps. Some of them will remember to add the fuel. That is 2 things. A car costs $6. The payment, the fuel, the insurance, the maintenance, the registration, and the taxes. and a sixth one that almost nobody ever names because it never sends anybody a bill. Start with the obvious ones. The average new car payment in America is now over $700 a month, and even a used one lands somewhere in the mid-500s. Fuel for an ordinary commute runs around $150. Full coverage insurance for a single adult averages roughly $180. Maintenance, tires, and repairs come to about $100. Registration and taxes, another $20 on top. That is 5 of them. And now the sixth, depreciation. The value quietly draining out of your car while it sits in the parking lot at work doing absolutely nothing at all. A car loses a very large share of its value in the first few years you own it, and you pay every cent of that loss on the day you sell it. It never sends an invoice, nobody budgets for it, and it is one of the largest lines of the 6. Add all 6 together and the average American car costs roughly $1,020 a month, $12,240 a year to get to work and back. That single line is now 2/3 the size of your rent. It is larger than your food and your utilities put together, and most people driving one would tell you it costs them $400, running total $3,080. Line 5, health insurance. If your employer covers most of your premium, then you are genuinely lucky and you can cut this number down hard. But a significant share of working adults do not have that. For them, a benchmark plan for one adult runs somewhere around $480 a month, before you have used it a single time, before one appointment, before one prescription is filled. And the premium is not the whole cost either. Most of these plans carry a deductible in the thousands, which means you pay $480 every month and then pay again, out of pocket, for almost everything until you cross that threshold. Insurance in this country is not a payment that ends your medical costs. It is a payment that caps how catastrophic they are allowed to get. Running total, $3,560. Line 6, phone and internet, $130. And before anybody calls that a luxury, try applying for a job without either one of them. Try receiving a shift schedule, a 2-factor code, or a callback from a hiring manager. It is not entertainment. It is the basic equipment required to hold employment. Line 7, everything else. And this is the smallest line, which is precisely why it is the most misleading. Soap, laundry detergent, toothpaste, a haircut, a new pair of shoes when the old ones split along the sole, a birthday present for somebody you love, $220 a month, which works out at roughly $7 a day for the entire remaining business of being a person. Running total, $3,910 a month. There it is, $3,910 every single month. One adult, one average American city, one bedroom, nothing extra anywhere in that list. And before we go any further, I want you to look hard at what is not on it. There is no savings account on that list. No retirement contribution, no emergency fund for the day the transmission finally goes. There is no dental, because dental is not in most health plans. There is no holiday, not even a single weekend away. There is no restaurant, no cinema, no concert ticket. There is no debt repayment, which means that if you are carrying student loans or a credit card balance, this number is already too low for you. And there are no children anywhere in this arithmetic. One person, surviving, nothing above the waterline. But we are still not finished, because $3,910 is the money you need to have. It is not the money you need to earn. Between those two numbers sits the government, and it takes its share first, before the money ever reaches your account at all. So we have to work backwards through the tax system to find out what the gross figure actually has to be. Federal income tax, state income tax in most states, Social Security, Medicare. At this particular income level, together they take somewhere in the region of 22%. That figure moves depending on your state. In Texas or Florida, with no state income tax at all, it is lower. In California or New York, it is higher. 22% is the reasonable middle, and that is what we are going to use. So, $3,910 to survive means you need about $5,010 a month before tax. Multiply that by 12 months of the year, $60,120 annually. A full-time job in America is 2,080 hours. Take that annual figure and divide it by those hours. And here is the number. $28.90 an hour. That is what it costs to live alone in this country and finish the month at exactly zero. Not saving a single cent, not investing, not building anything at all, not getting even slightly ahead of where you started. Zero. You survived the month, the bills are paid, and that is the entire prize on offer. $60,000 a year for one person in a one-bedroom apartment with no holiday and no savings. If your first reaction is that the number sounds far too high, that reaction is the entire reason this video exists. Because most people are walking around with a mental figure that stopped being accurate about a decade ago, and almost nobody has sat down and rebuilt it since. Now put that number next to one more. The median American worker earns about $29.75 an hour. Look at those two figures side by side for a second. $28.90 to survive alone, $29.75 in the exact middle of the entire workforce. The difference between them is 85 cents an hour. That is the whole margin. 85 cents, around $35 across a full working week. The median American worker can afford to live alone by roughly the price of one takeaway meal every 7 days. And the word median matters enormously here, because median means the middle. Half of all workers earn more than that figure, and half of all workers earn less than it. Which means half of the American workforce cannot afford to live alone at all, not because of bad decisions, not avocado toast, not a coffee habit, not a failure of discipline or budgeting or character. The arithmetic simply does not close. You can be doing every single thing correctly, working full-time, carrying no debt, wasting nothing, and still be standing underneath that line. And here is where most people say the obvious thing. Just move somewhere cheaper. It sounds like the answer. It is the advice left in the comments underneath every single video like this one, usually with a great deal of confidence. Lesson 3. The cheap city is a trap, and the trap is not visible until you have already signed the lease and hired the truck. Go to one of the lowest cost metropolitan areas in the country, and yes, the rent drops immediately, maybe from $1,540 down to $1,100. You have just saved $440 a month, which feels like a straightforward win. That is more than $5,000 across a year. On a spreadsheet, that decision looks completely and obviously correct. But wages fell too, and they fell harder. The median wage in a low-cost metro is not $29.75. It is closer to $24 an hour, across a full-time year that is nearly $1,000 a month of gross income that has simply stopped existing. You saved $440 on rent and lost $1,000 in pay. You are now further behind than when you started packing. And the car got worse. Cheap cities are cheap partly because they are spread out, and spread out means everything sits further away from everything else. Longer commutes, no public transport whatsoever. More miles on the odometer every week, which means more fuel, faster tire wear, more frequent servicing, and faster depreciation. So the largest hidden line in the entire budget goes up, not down. The cheap city did not solve your problem. It moved the problem from a line you can see, which is rent, to a line you cannot, which is the car. That is exactly why this advice keeps getting handed out and keeps not working. People compare rent between two cities because rent is the number that is easy to look up, and they never once compare the other 5 lines that moved at the same time. Geography does matter though, just not in the way people assume. Run this same calculation across the whole country and the hourly figure ranges from around $22 in the cheapest metros to over $45 in the most expensive. Same one person, same one-bedroom apartment. Same job title on the same resume, double the requirement purely on the basis of which side of a state line you happen to sleep on. So what do people actually do when the number will not close? They don't vanish, they adapt, and the adaptations have become so common that we have very largely stopped noticing them at all. They get a roommate at 35 years old. They stay in a relationship that ended emotionally 2 years ago because leaving it turns out to be financially impossible. They move back into a childhood bedroom with a full-time job and a framed degree hanging on the wall above the bed. They rent a single room instead of an apartment. They live somewhere with a commute that costs them 2 hours of every single day. Every one of those is a rational response to arithmetic that does not work. None of them is a character flaw. All of them are a budget. And it was not always like this. In 1980, the median rent in America took a little under a quarter of the median income. Today, it takes more than a third of it. Wages did rise across those 4 decades. They genuinely did rise. Rent simply rose faster in almost every single year for 40 years running. And that widening gap between the two lines is the entire story. Not one bad year, not one bad policy. 4 decades of 2 lines drifting steadily apart, until privacy, a door that closes, a room with nobody else in it, quietly moved out of the category of ordinary things and into the category of things you buy. So the next time somebody tells you that young people just don't want to work, you don't need an argument. You need one number, $28.90 an hour. That is the price of a door that closes.